Elvy. Welcome to a new Elvy comedy video production. This one is about family, career, and Las Vegas. You know, lately I've been feeling stressed. Everything seems backwards today. And you can't seem to find good help anymore. For instance, I went to see my shrink the other day. He wasn't in his office. I was told he had a relapse and ended up back in therapy. Folks, mental illness is real. You know how you tell when there's a mental health crisis? When your shrink calls the next day to borrow some of the Prozac he prescribed for you the day before. I feel sorry for the millennials. They're gonna have to deal with this. I'm convinced more now than ever there's a correlation between the current generation dying and the new generation's IQ levels. You see, one is brain dead and the other will inherit a learning deficit because there doesn't seem to be anything left to pass on. But you know, even though I'm in my 60s, strangely, I can relate to millennials, you see. These days, they're moving in with their parents. I never left. Needless to say, things were different when I was coming out. For instance, I came from a very close-knit family. There were 9 of us, and only 2 beds. But we were a very tight family. My parents kept us in restraints. As a result, our mental and physical development was limited. Eventually, they moved us to the projects for self-esteem building, and this made sense because there were buildings everywhere. And subsequently, we became an even closer-knit family. Mom took up crocheting. So I guess you could say we turned out to be a bunch of nitwits. Yeah, growing up with a family presents lots of challenges, and perhaps when we have our own families, we'll remember the lessons learned from the past. I remember when my son was young, I was proud of him for upholding our tradition of academic accomplishments. I got left back in the 1st grade, but he did better. He made it all the way to the 5th grade before getting left back. I guess to pay me back, I didn't even get invited to his college graduation. It was standing room only. I obviously had no standing. I guess you could say there was a big misunderstanding. Well, now he's grown, has a family of his own. He and his wife have 5 dogs. So once I said to them, in the future I'll be looking for grandchildren. They said, what a coincidence. In the future we'll be looking for a grandfather. But as strange as our relationship may seem, we do manage to get along. For instance, although I don't see my son and his wife very much, they don't neglect me. Why, every Christmas I receive a gift from them. A care package dropped at my front door. So while I waited to become a grandfather, I decided to launch a political group. I decided to advocate against free speech. Yep, free speech. My campaign message was simple. If speech is free, how am I supposed to support my family? You know, a wise man once said sometimes free speech can cost. But on the other hand, the one good thing about free speech is it's not taxable. Well, naturally, since I love to talk, politics seemed to be the right choice. Of course, talking too much can sometimes get you into trouble. And for instance, I knew a guy who talked so much trash when he died, they buried him in a dumpster. And I once dated this beautiful girl who had such a potty mouth. Whenever you complimented her looks, she'd flush. Sadly, I knew a young lady who talked so much and hardly ever paused. Her periods were irregular, and so were her sentences. And talk about king of the talkers. A bit of advice for the mafia. If the mafia was smart, they'd all convert from Catholics to Jehovah's Witnesses. Why, you say? Have you ever known a Jehovah's Witness to testify? You know, once I knew a guy at work who talked so much he had to take an extended warranty on his tongue. And another guy I knew had such a poor sense of grammar and talked so much during sex he disappointed his partners because he always ended with a dangling participle. Tragically, I knew a guy who talked so much he forgot to pause. He got hit by a question mark Now he suffers with colon damage. It gets worse, folks. I knew a guy who talked so much the government sent him to Guantanamo Bay just to boost morale. And lastly, how about talk of Las Vegas becoming a sanctuary city? Well, if it did, it would be difficult to get rid of undocumented immigrants. As a result, they wouldn't have to worry about a thing. Because, after all, we all know that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, my political career took a nosedive, and I moved on to becoming a stand-up comic. Because I believe life must go on, and it's important to not let the stress of family get to me. Why, sometimes people ask me what I do after work. I tell them I do comedy on the side. When they ask me why on the side, I tell them because it's easier to dodge the tomatoes. I think my interest in comedy began when I was young. When I was a child, I had an aunt who used to call me a knucklehead. And you know something? She stopped calling me a knucklehead when I hit her in the head with my knuckles. Naturally, she didn't think that was funny. And sometimes I practice telling my jokes at cemeteries because if I do get a laugh, at least I know it's down to earth. Sometimes I practice telling my jokes at funeral homes because if they flop, at least I know I can give them a decent burial. Since I got married, I learned to tell my jokes sparingly because my mother-in-law just moved in, so I can't afford to run out of material. But recently I've been having a difficult time trying to stop self-deprecating in spite of having wonderful friends who support me. Because there's one friend who constantly puts me down. But lately, I'm starting to realize why he puts me down. Because when he tries to lift me up, I tell him, put me down. By the way, did you know business is booming in Sin City, Las Vegas, in spite of recent events? There's so much sin in Las Vegas, sometimes something phenomenal has happened. For the first time, there's a waiting list to get into heaven. And the amount of sin is increasing at such an alarming rate in Las Vegas, the authorities at the Hoover Dam are scheduled to release millions of gallons of water just to cool things down. But one business here, KFC, business couldn't be better. They're adding a new item to their menu and they're calling it Sin by the Bucket. Now you can get breasts and thighs for less than you would pay on the streets. Needless to say, streetwalkers are not happy with KFC's decision. And given sin is everywhere in Las Vegas, you'd think there'd be an increased demand for priests. Well, not quite. But there's been an influx of undertakers and funeral homes into the city. This is easily explainable. Someone's got to bury the sin. Serious, folks. There is so much sin here in Vegas, I've started a bottling business to bottle the excess sin in case Kim Jong-un launches a nuclear attack against Las Vegas. We'd have sufficient stockpiles to rebuild. But what's really sad is that there's so much sin here in Las Vegas, folks. Jesus took one look and said, "Hell no."